Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of the Annuity Show. And I will give you sort of here's a little bit of a spoiler alert. You're going to have to watch this on video. So, Mark, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great, Paul. Good morning.
Good morning, Ramsey. How are you? And do you want to do the honors of introducing our guest?
Sure. Yeah. As always great to be here with you guys. So today we're joined by Charles Samuel. So Charles Samuel is the regional VP that covers my region, and really, I like to say this whole story started with a bit of humble pie, like my humble pie. So the first time that Charles and I had a Zoom call, it was actually after having had several calls over a regular phone line. First time we had a Zoom call, we had that moment where both of our pictures popped up. And, I looked like I had just come from the gym, and Charles just came out like swinging, ready to go. And it was striking. And we spent the entire conversation really talking about best practices around virtual meetings. So we've talked a lot about virtual meetings on the show, why it's so important, and everybody's trying to figure out what best practices are. We're lucky today to have someone in Charles who's actually focused on developing a best practice around this going back 10 years. And so he was well ahead of the curve on realizing the importance of virtual meetings and has made it his calling card in so many places. And we have the good fortune of being able to talk to him today about some of those best practices. And as Paul said, would recommend that anybody that's listening to this take a chance to take the opportunity to watch this on the video. And again, you can look at the four frames here and see Charles's frame and look at our frames. And our frames aren't bad, but like you see the benefit of years of actually really sort of perfecting the craft. So with that, Charles, very excited to have you on, but let's get into quickly, like how you figured out that this was going to be important. And, what are the things that have helped you, do this better than really clearly a lot of people do?
Yeah. And sorry to just piggyback.
Please.
I mean, Wow. I look at this, I'm like, okay, just straight up, such a different message, right? And way to communicate. And the only thing I'd say is just tell us, like, why? There's passion here, right? Tell us where this passion comes from. What's your mission?
At the end of the day, results don't lie. And a lot of times people right now, they're using technology for the first time. And for some, they're struggling because they're not getting the results that they're looking to achieve. What I'd like to do is kind of give you guys just an overview of my story and how we got here and why this is so important and why I have this passion and why we're changing the way that people look at virtual meetings. And now we're showing people that you can have fun. There are a lot of people that are saying, you know what, now that we've gone through this best practices, I'm actually having fun again. I'm able to recreate that virtual kitchen table. I'm able to recreate the experience that my clients would have if they were coming to my office. But it started, like Ramsey said, almost 10 years ago, right? Many people have been doing Webexes and webinars for a very long time. And so one day I turned my video camera on and I did a presentation, and let me tell you, it was not like it is today. It was terrible. And there are a few things that I learned along the way, but the one thing that I really took away from that is when you turn your video camera on, it makes it more personal. It makes it more emotional. And along the way, I also have a background of photography, I have a background in videography, and a background in sales. So what we started to do is focus on not just turning our video camera on, but also making sure that the lighting was in an appropriate place, to make sure that we were framed up the right way, to make sure that we had the right background. And what we started to realize is when you start, using your webcam, you start doing these virtual meetings, many people have been selling for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And some of the same processes that they've learned over the years, they can apply toward this. So one of the things that I noticed right away was that we were able to make complex conversations seem very simple. And so for an advisor, when you're talking about annuities, many times when people are thinking about annuities, they're thinking about retirement, they're thinking about life insurance, they're afraid and they're confused and they're using that fight or flight part of their brain to think, and they can't process information. And as an advisor, you have to get them to use their prefrontal cortex. Well, one of the key ways of helping them to use that prefrontal cortex is by bringing in things like this. For example, bringing in visual aids. When you can bring in a visual aid, that's going to stimulate them. And why is that important?
Okay, no, sorry. For our listeners, okay. We just saw you just lifted over a whiteboard, plopped it in front.
That's
now
right.
You're about to take a presentation as if you're sitting in my living, you're in my office or you're in my living room. You've taken over the screen with a chart and a diagram. You just got my wild attention here.
That's the point, right? We're using visual aids to stimulate that thought. We're stimulating that prefrontal cortex. When you think of the way that people learn, there are three types of learners, right? So you have visual learners, and about 65% of Americans today, they're visual learners. And then you have people that are auditory learners, right? So about 35% of people today learn by listening. And then you have individuals that are kinesthetic learners. They learn by touching and being a part of the process. So if you have a whiteboard sales idea, or if you have a flip chart sales idea, or if you have a napkin sales idea in your virtual office, in which we'll talk about the kit that you'll need, or some of the kits that you could use, is set up the right way. When you start having questions about retirement, you could frame that conversation and have a deeper interaction with your client by focusing on what they want their retirement to look like, when they want to retire, why is it important, and how they're going to get there to get to that depth that you're looking for. So that's why I'm very excited. We've been doing this for a long time now, and using visual aids, using the right lighting, using the right audio, having a script or having an agenda queued up for the call has helped us tremendously.
You know, what's interesting is, we've been obviously doing a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of Zoom conferences and whatnot over the last several months. And what seems to take place a lot is people casual down a lot in the Zoom meetings. And people are much more casually dressed, relaxed. The conversation tends to be a little bit more relaxed. And looking at you, you're coming on today, you got a suit, tie, you're standing, so it's a different dynamic in terms of the way the presentation is worked. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic? And is this how you always would present? Are you always standing? Are you always fully in a suit?
When you stand up, you just have more energy. Psychologically, you could push out way more energy than you could if you were sitting down. And in many cases, your customer will be sitting down. So psychologically, you place yourself in a position of strength. And in some cases, it may be okay to sit down. The one thing that I would encourage, if you do sit down, use a stool so that you don't have anything that's coming or outlining your back. When you think about, when you're looking at the news, right? If they're sitting down on a stool, so you could really focus on them. But I like standing up. My wife, she teases me in the morning sometimes because I even spray on cologne. She's like, honey, you're not leaving the house. Why are you putting on cologne? We're in this new normal, right? So what would you normally do? I would normally get up, I would shave, I would put on my cologne, because if I look good and I feel good and I smell good, when things go wrong, I still have my composure, my confidence, and then I can connect and I can deliver the message in a way that can connect with my client. So for us, we always try to dress up. Sometimes I'll lose a tie, but let me tell you, I had a meeting with the client once before, and as advisors, you may be meeting with clients that may not turn on their camera unless they're ready to go. We turned on our camera, and this young lady, she had her pearls on, she had her red lipstick, and I was thinking to myself, it's a good thing I had my tie on. You can always take a tie off or unbutton your top button, but you can't add things on once you turn your camera on. Here's why. when you turn your camera on, Ramsey said it at first, you have this thing called the MOT. It's the moment of truth. That moment of truth takes place in 7 seconds or less. There's another rule, this rule of 7-11. And in the first 7 seconds of having an interaction with someone, you're making 11 assumptions of that person. You're looking, your mind is going to say, well, you know, this must be their educational background or their economic status. But as an advisor, there are other things that that person is assessing. Number one, they're going to assess, is this person credible? Is this person believable? Are they competent? And are they honest? All of that is taking place in the first few seconds. And then the remainder of the meeting is just confirming what they've already locked in. So if you already know that, then why not make sure that when your camera first comes on, you have your 3-point lighting. You have the lighting behind you. You have the 2 lights on the side. For me, we also have lights that are hitting the wall. And then making sure that you're dressed appropriately. Now, some people, it's not just about putting a tie on, because if I turned off all these lights, Ramsey and I did this before. He was like, Charles, that's very different. It is. Now, some people, they'll say, okay, so you dressed up. Yes. You have your tie on. Yes. You brush your teeth. Absolutely. And then they turn on all the lights, but then they stand right next to the wall. You guys see what's behind me? Like this double shadow thing?
Shadows.
Yeah. So what we always say is, if you can step about 3 or 4 feet off the wall, that shadow is going to hit the floor, and now the wall has a nice even background. And then when you think about the placement of your camera, so you see the tie, but you also see my gestures, because one of the things Paul was saying was, you're so energetic. There's so much energy. But what if I was doing the same gestures and I was way down here? Would it still be the same? Or what if I wasn't focusing on the camera? And many people aren't doing that. I could be dressed up just like I am today, and I could be looking at myself on the screen. Man, I look good today, right? And I could be throwing all of my energy toward my picture, because where your eyes are focused, that's where your energy is going. And so not just dressing the part, but also making sure you're spending at least 90% of your effort on that camera so that you're projecting all of that energy towards your client.
This is interesting. So let me just sort of describe your frame. So if you look at us, we've gotten better, Charles. You can't believe this, right? Like our heads are all.
You guys look good.
All the
way
top,
better. Yeah.
Right? Mark, you got to move your camera down a little bit more. But we've got, we look like if we had a little better editing software that worked like this remotely, we could chop us up and we would look like the name your network, CNN or Fox News, experts coming in here. You look like the anchor. Now I look and I can actually, we talked about this, before when we did a pre-show call. I see your elbows. Tell us about that. Why do I see your elbows?
When you think about the human body, the waist is a neutral zone. And so for us, I want to make sure that at least my elbows are showing, because for me, I love using my expressions. There may be times where you're talking to your client as an advisor and you're saying, there's another tip here. A lot of times when you're making gestures, people read from right to left. So as an advisor, if you're going to gesture, if you could gesture the other way around from left to right. So if you're saying, we're going to start the program at this point, but at this point, we're going to progress. Many people, when they retire, they have the fear of outliving their income. As a matter of fact, 60% of Americans today are more afraid of running out of money in retirement than death. Right. So by making sure that my elbows are in the frame, I know that when I am gesturing, that all of my gestures are carrying through. For example, you want to practice ahead of time as well, because what if I was gesturing way out here and my hands are cut off? Then you're losing the effect. So for me, having the elbows in the frame allow me to convey my emotion. And why is that important right now? Here's why this is important right now. When there are market downturns, like there are right now, the strength of an advisor's relationship with their client is being tested more than ever before. You have individuals that, due to COVID's law, have you guys heard of COVID's law?
No. What is COVID's
law?
No.
You guys haven't heard of COVID? Okay, you've heard of Newton's law, right?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
So what does Newton's law state?
What goes up must come down.
What goes up must come down. There's another part of the law that says an object that's in motion will continue to be in motion unless a force acts against that object. And an object at rest will stay at rest until a force acts upon that object and puts it in motion. And I'm coining the phrase COVID's law because for many individuals, COVID's law has stopped their lives. It has impacted their lives. People have lost their jobs. They've lost loved ones. They've been deeply impacted. I know myself, my brother died from COVID earlier this year, and he was 44 years old. Oh. And at those moments, you know what, it was hard, but even in death, he taught me the importance of family. And I think everybody is realizing that we have to be more connected. And in some ways, we are more connected now than we ever before. But what COVID has done is COVID has taken everything that's happening right now and it's put it under a pressure cooker. So in some cases, if you're an advisor and you were used to going to your client and visiting with them and you have older clients, those clients may be saying, I need what you have, but I don't want to see you face to face. And the phone calls just aren't getting it, right? Or maybe you're saying to yourself, I'd love to visit you, but I am a part of this protected class and I don't want to get sick. So now COVID has stopped people from doing certain things, but COVID has also been a catalyst when you think about how we use technology today. And some people will say, well, my clients have COVID fatigue. I strongly disagree because when my brother passed away, right? I had to travel to Houston with my parents because they were new to Zoom and how to use Zoom. And we had to make sure everybody was framed up the right way. We had to make sure that we did the audio. So for us, we always encourage using external cameras. You have cameras on your computer, but the quality isn't sometimes where it needs to be. The frames per second really isn't where it needs to be. It's not HD, and you never know how they're going to project your image. And in many cases, customers have told me and advisors have stated that they're being projected on 55-inch monitors, which goes back to Mark, why I have a tie on. Mm-hmm. But then having the right audio, right? Because you want to be crisp and clear, and then having the right lighting. At the end of my brother's services, people called in and was like, you know what? That was amazing. It looked like you guys were on the news. It looked like you guys were here, there, and everywhere, right? Doing things that look very good. But more importantly, I have 7 children. I have 7 kids, and they're all doing virtual learning. What does that mean? My daughter, she interrupted me doing one of my calls. And she said, Dad, can you keep it down? You know, I'm having a meeting. I'm like, what do you mean you're having a meeting? She's like, I'm doing a Zoom meeting, right? So now our children are learning how to use this technology. We are, some people are getting married virtually. We're laying our loved ones to rest virtually. And now in this same environment, there are these market downturns and all these things are stressing your client out. And post-pandemic, people are going to say one or two things. They're going to say, where was my advisor when I needed them the most, when I needed to see them and clearly understand the plans that we put in place? Or they're going to say, my advisor was able to rise to the challenge. They were able to change their business and evolve so that even though we couldn't physically be together, virtually, we were able to get connected. And why is that important? Some people will state, or some people feel, and some people have said it on both sides of the aisle, they said, we are either in or approaching the largest transfer of wealth in history. $68 trillion are being transferred from baby boomers to their children and their grandchildren. And wouldn't it be an amazing story if you're an advisor right now, you're thinking, what do I need to do to get my business to the next level? How do I cement my relationships? How do I get over to the next generation? How do I really take this thing to the next level? If you're connecting virtually with your clients today, at a time that they need you the most, they'll be able to tell their children and their grandchildren, because of Paul, because of Mark, because of Ramsey, I was able to secure my retirement in a time where the market was volatile, in a time where there are all these other external factors. I didn't have to worry about my income because I knew it was guaranteed, and he spoke to me in a way that I understood. And no matter what happens in the future, he will be here, or she will be here for you. And that's the opportunity that we all have. And so for me, I can't overstate the importance of making sure you're prepared, because what I've noticed is this: some people will say, advisors will say, but the challenge that I have is, how do I engage new clients, right? Because I could do this with my old clients, but how do I engage new clients? Because it's just not, it's against protocol to use a virtual meeting with a new client. Well, I would challenge that, because if you guys get really hungry and you don't want to drive to get your food, what do?
Order takeout.
You order takeout. And who brings it to you?
Delivery guy.
Yeah.
Do you know him?
No.
You don't know him. Okay.
No.
Let's say you go to the airport and you don't want to rent a car because you're in New York and you can't park anywhere, right, Ramsey? You go to the airport, and if you don't want to get in a taxi, what do?
Uber.
You Uber. You get in the car with a perfect stranger. That's something your parents told you never to do, right? You have food delivered by a perfect stranger in their personal car. These things are commonplace today. So for many people, I would challenge them. It's not that the technology isn't easy to use. I'll give you a story. I enjoy playing chess. Do you guys enjoy playing chess?
Yes,
Yeah.
Not very good at it, but yes.
Okay. So I enjoy playing chess, and I teach that to my children. Now, my youngest son, so I have 5 boys and 2 girls. My youngest son can beat everybody except for me. And the other day, he was playing with his younger sister, and she was frustrated. Not because chess isn't an enjoyable game, because she doesn't understand all the elements that will allow her to win. And so once you really take out the time to practice virtual meetings, you're going to have fun. Yes, there are a lot of things you have to learn, but once you learn those things, you're going to take your business to the next level.
Okay, so
Sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead. So
Oh,
I just have a number of thoughts. I think we both have a lot of things. I'll just jump in real quick here. So a number of things came to mind. One is that, like, what you're talking about is a really quite a refined skill, because at the end of the day, you're sitting in a room and you've developed a sense of what we're seeing on the other end, even not looking at yourself on the screen. So you now know, just even staring into a camera, you've developed a very good sense of how whatever you do is reflected out here. So that's a skill that's going to take, I think, everybody a long time to get to. So I want to get some idea. Tell us a little bit about, how does one start on that journey, right? Because it's going to take a while, but what's the first step towards starting to develop that intuition?
All right. Record yourself. Turn on whatever virtual platform that you use. Turn on your video camera, turn on your audio, turn on your lights, and just give a 60-second presentation. And then watch yourself. And look at, what did you like? What did you not like? There are people that you know, love, and trust. Do a scheduled time to do a simple 5-minute call with them. Let them know what you're trying to accomplish. Say, I'm working on my visual skills. I'm working on my screen share capability. I'm working on, a really good point, annotating the slide. Many people will do a screen share, but they'll do a screen share and there's a lot of information on the screen and they're not annotating the slide. Annotating is important because if you're in person and you wanted to show a person something, you point to what was important to highlight it. But a lot of times people are using their screen share, but they're not focusing the client's attention on Mr. Client. This is what we're trying to accomplish for you. This is what we said we're going to accomplish, and this is what it looks like. And so practice, practice, practice. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it does take a lot of practice. So I think Bruce Lee said, if you want to perfect a kick, you got to try it, 10,000 times? So get to work.
Well, let me ask you. So this is tremendous. I'll tell you. I know what I'm going to try tonight.
60 seconds.
Yeah, when I get home. The jumping mediums, right? So listen, true story, Mark. Mark, you will believe me. Okay, I was on chat last night with a woman, 52 years old, online chat on our website. She's 52 years old. It's a very interesting medium to sort of figure out how can I get to know, like, trust somebody through the phone. Now, my kids are great at it. So if they can do this, I know I can do this here. So great. She wants to talk to us about fixed annuities, tomorrow. Now she's coming back, or today. She's coming back. 7 o'clock was when it was convenient for her. She's getting off and going to be home around 4:30. Oh, hey, great. Name withheld. Would you like to talk by phone, or would you like to do a Zoom? That's what I said. And she says, oh, I'd prefer to do this by phone. Now, I think that, Charles, if I got her on Zoom, I bet we could close the sale. Now, did I make the fatal flaw of giving her a choice? Would you say, let's do a Zoom, here's a link?
It's word choice. For years, we would say, do you want to have a Webex? Would you like to do a Webex? And instantly, when a person thinks Webex, I'll ask you, when I say Webex, from a time standpoint, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Oh, it's PowerPoints. You're going to suck
30
me down
minutes
for an hour.
That's 30 minutes. It's an hour of my life. It is gone. We're out of there. One of the things that we really work on with our process is, as an advisor, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I love to meet with you. When's a good time? Great. You set up the time. There are a lot of things that I'd like to share with you. I want to show you. As a matter of fact, if I was in that same interview, these are some of the same things that I would bring up. There are a few questions I'd like to ask you, and there may be a few things that I'd like to share with you. During our meeting time, will you be at home? Yes. Would you mind logging into your computer? Because I'd like to share with you. I want to show you what we're doing. Words won't be able to fully describe the things I'm going to share with you, because what people fail to realize is a good visual picture. People will instantly see a picture and recognize what's happening. But if you looked at a chart or numbers or a paragraph, you have to process, what am I looking at? You could instantly look at this picture and say, he's framing retirement, right? And then you could go back to, and sometimes in some cases, as an advisor, if you have the questions you want to ask already there and say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm going to ask you 4 questions. I want to know what you want your retirement to look like. I want to know when you want to retire. I want to know why that's important to you. And I want to know how we're going to get there, or how you plan on getting there. And that's going to allow you to have that deep conversation. And along the way, they're going to ask a question. They're going to have some challenge. And then you can pivot to a screen share. And now you can share a picture that shows, here's what we're trying to accomplish. And then when they have additional questions, you can back into the numbers.
Oh, this is great. Well, where were you last night? I'm telling you, where were you?
I was at home. My wife can vouch for me.
That's really good. That is great. You know what? I'm writing that. That will be the next one.
Don't ask to do a virtual meeting. Don't ask to do a Webex. Don't ask to do a Zoom. But have the conversation around, I want to share something with you. And if you're in front of your computer, I'd like to walk you through it. Some people may feel that they are obligated to turn their video camera on. And if you feel resistance, then you could say, it's not important for you to have your video camera on, but it is important for you to be in front of your computer. And if having it on your computer is very difficult, if you want to broadcast it to your TV so that when we go over the numbers, it's larger. And there's a small story to say there as well, because I had a mentor of mine. One of the things that he shared with me a few years ago is, he said, if you want to close a person, get within 3 feet of them. I said, what do you mean? He said, you get real close to them, right? You lower your voice, they lean in, they're paying attention. As an advisor, that creates an intimate setting. And when you think about your computers today, I'm sure you could reach out and just about touch your monitor. So in some cases, when you use technology the right way, you are actually closer to your clients now than you ever were at any other time in history. And you have a better chance of moving that sale forward. Plus, you have access to all of your information in a very seamless way. You can transition everything in and out.
You know, what's interesting,
Go ahead,
Charles?
Mark.
What's interesting is like early on when the pandemic started and people were starting to first adapt to utilizing virtual technology, there seemed to be a pretty good wave of resistance up front to it. And now those advisors and agents that have really kind of come on board with using it are saying, you know what, this has really changed the way I do business and will change it going forward, because they're finding it a lot more efficient than getting in a car and going out and traveling. You also mentioned closing ratios and closing styles and strategies. I also think this is a great opportunity to really bring all interested parties together. So how many times has an agent made a sale? You know, the presentation's done, the sale's complete. The client goes home and talks to a family member and then comes back and says, well, you know, I've changed my mind. Well, why? Well, no, my family just didn't think it made sense. But they don't know exactly the details about what the product offering was. So here's a great way to bring everybody together, you know, have the meeting, have the dialogue, regardless of where they are in the country. And ultimately, I think, increase and improve closing ratios.
You can, and you can grow your practice. There is a technique as an advisor that you could use, that we use and we coach people on almost every week. Sometimes we have several meetings a day. And many people were trained how to sell face-to-face. And when you're selling face-to-face, what can you do? You can look at, as an advisor, you could look at the husband kind of move when the wife kicks him. Or you can look at, you know, the husband as he looks over to his wife and you can see, but if you're looking at the camera, you can't do any of those things. And when you think about the moment of truth, a lot of times they look at your car and say, oh, I like that guy's car. Or they look at when you walk up to their home before you knock on the door, they're making all these assumptions. Or when they walk into your office building, they're making all these assumptions. But to your point, how do you have a defined process that allows that other person to feel comfortable bringing in third parties? Because they don't want to bring in a third party if they don't know what to expect, and if what you're going to say is going to make them feel uncomfortable, right? But the process that we typically use is a very simple process, and it's a three-step approach. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to share a sales concept or a sales idea to help draw the client out. I want to know, what do you want your retirement to look like? Are you more focused on accumulation or income? Oh, income. Do you want that income now or later? Now. Do you want a guarantee for life? Absolutely. Do you want control and no control? I want control. Well, if you want income now, guaranteed for life, and you want control, there's really only one solution that does that for you. But I have a question for you. Are you concerned with running out of money? I am. So first we have a sales concept. That sales concept bridges you over to a third-party marketing piece. It could be a news article. It could be something current. It could be something tried and true, but we're not getting the product yet. You're really just expounding on the idea that they already agreed to. I want this, great. Well, here's an idea. There are a lot of people that are asking the question, will I run out of money in retirement? Is that valid? And then you have the supporting documentation that says, yes, it is valid. And then you move over to the actual solution, the illustration. And that's where many people die when they're doing these virtual meetings, because you put up the illustration. What's the average page length of an illustration? 13, 14, 15 pages, right? A lot of information. And then your client, they're in their 60s, maybe their 70s. And now, typically, if you're face-to-face, you flip through to a page that makes sense to start on. Then you point on it. You point to that particular whatever you're highlighting, and you kind of go over it. Well, what we've done is we've taken that same model, but when we focus on the illustration, we go to the page that has the picture. A picture that already is in line with the sales idea that we presented to the client, as you as the advisor presenting to the client. Then going along with the marketing piece that you're presenting to the client, and then you're landing on the solution. And then as they have questions about, but where are the numbers that support this picture, you can back into the numbers. And then they'll say things like, well, how much does this cost? And then you back into the cost. Well, what if I want to walk away too soon? And then you can show them the surrender charges. So you still cover all the points, but it's the order in which you do it. You have to kiss it. You have to keep it sweet and simple. And a lot of times in our space, we try to overcomplicate it. So why is that important? Going back to the point that you made, Mark. If you have a process that's simple and duplicatable, and you do it every time, and they say, you know, Mark, I love to bring in my brother, or I love to bring in my father, or I love to bring in this person. What can they expect? Then you could say the same thing. I'm going to ask you 4 questions. What do you want? When do you want it? Why do you want it? How is it important? We're going to go over an idea. We're going to validate that idea. I have a number of things. This is my tried and trusted income savvy piece, right? I have marketing materials that are client approved that will overcome any objection that your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, your mother-in-law, father-in-law may have, right? And you can send that to them. And then once we've overcome the objections, then we could talk about what solution is best for you in this situation. So in some cases, you could meet with a person in Ohio and then invite their family member that's in California. So now you have a way to exponentially grow your practice if you have a process that's nice and tight.
This is tremendous. And with that, we want to respect your time. This was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Okay. So Charles, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, they want to learn more, what's the best way to find you? I'm an agent. I want to, learn. I want to get that book you just showed me and took away.
I am a wholesaler. So my job is to work with our distribution partners like Ramsey and other partners in our area. So what I would say is reach out to your local independent marketing organization, and they will be able to gain access to all the information we talked about today. And we'd be more than happy to share it with you.
So look, Charles, thanks very much for sharing all this information. I think, look, the most important thing here in my mind is that this is a life skill. So it starts with, right now, I think the agents and advisors that can actually pick up these kind of skills will have a competitive advantage for some period of time. And then at a certain point, it's going to be table stakes, and you're going to have those skills just to be relevant. And I think that the other thing that's really kind of important here is that it's not just for us that are in the business of sales, but it's for our kids. You talked about how you've got 7 kids that are doing virtual class. Same here. Oh, I have 2, not 7. But I always tell them, try to imagine what your teacher's seeing. So like when my kid's on the iPad and is moving around all the time, like you're going to make the person on the other end get seasick because
you are
because the screen is moving all the time. So it's all these things really matter, and they will be valuable in business. They'll be valuable socially. They'll be valuable in so many different places, and it's a very sort of nuanced thing. So thank you very much for sharing it with us. And then one last thing is I think that multiplier effect is super important. So one is, like, as you said earlier, you could be talking to 100 people and everybody will think that, like, wow, he's talking to me. And then what Mark brought up, which is just so important, that like you have to be able to get all the same stakeholders in the room to help your client now, but also to keep those assets once the original client passes away and the kids trying to figure out who they want to do business with. So this was fantastic. So thank you very much on all fronts.
Hey, this is great. Charles, thanks so much. Mark, thank you. Ramsey, wow, this is a great find. Charles, you're going to be on our speed Zoom dial here pretty quick. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, listen, thanks everybody for listening to our show, and tuning in next week for another episode of That Annuity Show. And by the way, on our website, we actually do have a form to fill out with an email address, and if you fill it out, we will send you up alerts the minute these shows come up, so you don't miss good content like this. So anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.